My daughter was beaten by a boy, and I was called to the school. However, instead of receiving an apology, my daughter and I were repeatedly insulted by everyone, not because of right or wrong, but because of interests. This is only because the other party is the CEO of the smallest company I gave to my wife. Wait, does this mean I have been cuckolded? Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. In the elementary school parents group chat, a new message from the class teacher flashed on my screen. It was accompanied by a photo and a tag directed at me. Mr. Kyle, your daughter Yvonne was assaulted by other students in the classroom. Please come to the school immediately. I opened the attached photo and was horrified. My daughter's face was bruised, her nose swollen, and her clothes were ripped. Rage surged through me as I typed a reply. Who did this? A reply came almost instantly from someone marked as Father of Owen. His response dripped with arrogance. I told my son to do it. Before I could even process his words, he sent 2 more photos. The first was of him and my wife in wedding attire. The second was a family photo. My wife, my daughter, and me. You shameless freeloader. How dare you steal my wife and have an illegitimate daughter? Consider yourself lucky I didn't tell my son to kill that half-breed. The group chat exploded with reactions. Insults rained down on me and Yvonne. The once quiet forum now filled with hatred and cruelty. Seething, I sped toward the elementary school in my car, but not before messaging the legal department at my company. Draft a divorce agreement as per the prenuptial contract. I want Sylvia to leave with nothing. I added another command. My daughter was assaulted at school. Meet me there immediately. They need to pay a heavy price for this. I clenched my jaw as I typed the final message. How absurd. Feeding a playboy and an illegitimate child with my money. As I arrived at the school, I spotted Mr. Tyler, Owen's father, standing by the gates. He was surrounded by a group of parents from the same class. Their obsequious chatter filled the air. Oh, Mr. Tyler, you're so humble. We would never have guessed that Titan Group belongs to you if it weren't for this incident. Yes. No wonder I felt an instant respect for you when we first met. That's the commanding presence only the wealthy possess. We're here to support you. We won't let lowlifes and homewreckers tarnish our community. Exactly. Owen is clearly living up to his role as the young master of Titan Group. Taking action against society's scum, even at his age? That's impressive. Even Yvonne's class teacher had joined in, her voice soft and ingratiating. Mr. Tyler, I didn't realize your wife is the CEO of Titan Group. I almost blamed Owen unfairly. Don't worry. I'll make sure this situation is handled to your satisfaction. Tyler stood tall, soaking in the admiration, preening like a proud rooster basking in the glow of the crowd's flattery. After Sylvia and I got married, she had been eager to make a name for herself in the business world. I funded countless ventures for her, luxury boutiques, beauty salons, yoga studios, but each one failed miserably. Still, her ambition persisted. She then decided she wanted to become a CEO. So, I handed over the smallest company I owned, Titan Group. To my dismay, it became nothing more than a stage for Tyler to parade around, reveling in attention. When the group of parents finally noticed my presence, their fawning smiles shifted into expressions of disgust, as though I were some filth contaminating their space. The head teacher marched up to me, his face cold and indifferent. Mr. Kyle, the principal has asked me to inform you that Yvonne has been expelled. Expelled? I echoed, stunned. My daughter was assaulted, and instead of protecting her, you're expelling her? This school is for elite students, the head teacher replied nonchalantly. Our children come from prestigious families. A girl like Yvonne, with such questionable heritage, would only tarnish our reputation. I glared at him, my voice sharp with anger. You should be investigating who the real illegitimate child is. Before I could say more, Tyler strode up to me and, without warning, punched me in the face. Pain exploded across my cheek as I staggered backward. You home-wrecking scum. How dare you try to show off in front of me? Tyler growled, Do you really think by raising that bastard daughter, you can get your hands on my family's wealth? The other parents smirked and jeered, their words dripping with disdain. Look at him, prancing around like he's something special, when all he is a kept man living off a woman's fortune. Disgusting. Men like him make me sick, leeching off others instead of earning something for themselves. Even worse, raising a child with such dirty blood. It's no wonder she's being thrown out. The crowd's taunts grew louder, more venomous. Some parents even pulled out their phones, recording me, whispering insults and laughing among themselves. One woman spit in my direction. I shrugged off my $1,000,000 coat and tossed it into a nearby trash can. Then, facing Tyler, I spoke, my voice cold and controlled. You ordered your son to assault my daughter. Now you've assaulted me. Are you not afraid of the legal consequences? Tyler sneered, his arrogance unchecked. I fear nothing. I'm delivering justice. You seduced my wife, trying to worm your way into Titan Group. But I'm her legal husband, and I won't let you or your bastard daughter get away with this. Other parents chimed in again, their voices laced with mockery. If you hadn't interfered, none of this would have happened. You're getting exactly what you deserve. Look at him, acting like a victim. You're the one who's guilty, and everyone here knows it. I stood there, fists clenched at my sides, as the crowd of parents continued to sneer and berate me, their judgments as harsh as they were unfounded. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Even the bystanders joined in, openly hurling insults at me. Each one seemed more vicious than the last. Owen's father, emboldened by the crowd, glared furiously at the luxury car behind me. You beast, he shouted, his face flushed with anger. Living off my wife's money without a care in the world, aren't you? Even driving a Rolls-Royce. Does a worthless freeloader like you deserve a car like this? He sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. I've always hated cheaters, man or woman. Homewreckers deserve nothing less than death. With that, he brandished a key and scratched the words "Homewrecker must die" across the pristine car door. I glanced at the crude lettering, my expression cold. You'll soon see how ironic those words really are. Enraged by my calm response, Owen's father exploded. You leech, living off my wife's money and acting like you own the world. Today, I'll make you pay for every penny you've taken. He grabbed a brick from the roadside and started smashing the car in a frenzy. The windows, headlights, and hood were demolished under his relentless assault. The other parents, not wanting to be left out, picked up whatever they could find and joined him, pounding and slashing at the luxury vehicle. Before long, the once pristine car was reduced to nothing more than a heap of twisted metal. They even climbed into the shattered windows, tearing at the leather seats and slashing the interior. I watched the carnage, my eyes heavy with disdain. I hope when it's time to compensate, you'll be as eager as you are now, I said, my voice carrying a warning. But no one paid me any attention. I was as invisible as the wind. Just then, one of the parents broke open the trunk and shouted, "Look, he's got all kinds of valuable stuff back here." Owen's father approached with a sneer, yanking out a painting. A parasite like you, pretending to have class with this junk? Pathetic. I glanced at the painting in his hands and issued a warning. The value of the items in that trunk far exceeds my car, especially the calligraphy and artwork. I advise you not to damage them. The contents of the trunk were fresh acquisitions from an auction, highly valuable pieces. I had rushed here immediately after the auction, not even having time to properly store the items. Owen's father scoffed, his voice filled with venom. A lowlife like you collecting art? It's an insult to real collectors. With a sharp motion, he ripped the painting in half, then tossed it to the ground and stomped on it, grinding it beneath his foot. A nearby onlooker, with an eye for fine art, gasped. That looks like an original Edward Hopper. It was rumored to have a starting price of $300 million at the auction. Owen's father, indifferent, sneered. So what? Still my wife's money. What's wrong with me smashing what's rightfully ours? His arrogance left me momentarily speechless. Owen's father truly believed that anything his wife owned belonged to him. Never mind the fact that Sylvia was a spendthrift with no business acumen, whose poor decisions had nearly halved the Titan Group's market value. If she weren't my wife, I would have fired her long ago. Yet, to the other parents here, Sylvia was a revered figure, a brilliant businesswoman. They admired her with blind fervor. Following Owen's lead, the other parents began destroying the items in the trunk with reckless abandon. There was no reasoning with these fools. My focus shifted. I had come here for my daughter, and nothing else mattered now. Ignoring the mayhem behind me, I headed toward the school gates. But before I could enter, the principal appeared, blocking my path with a look of disgust. "Our school doesn't welcome the likes of you," he spat. "A kept man, a third-party homewrecker." I met his gaze, my voice low and cold. "I'm here to see my daughter." The principal snorted derisively. "Your daughter has already been expelled. A teacher will escort her out shortly." Before he had finished speaking, my daughter was unceremoniously tossed out of the school gates, her small body hitting the ground hard. She burst into tears. I rushed to her, lifting her into my arms, my heart breaking at the sight. Glaring at the principal, I demanded, "Is this how you treat students at your school?" He smirked. "An illegitimate child of a parasite like you doesn't deserve to be here. We're simply taking out the trash." The other parents applauded, cheering the principal on. "He's right. This is a prestigious school. It's no place for people like them." One parent sneered, "What does a mistress's daughter need an education for anyway? Isn't seducing men the family trade? She'll probably surpass her father at that." Owen's father joined in the mockery, his voice booming. "See? This is the fate of freeloaders like you. Your dirty little family is destined to be scorned by society." The cruel words surrounded me like a swarm of hornets, and my daughter trembled in my arms, clinging to me tightly. I could feel her small body shaking with fear. The principal, seizing the opportunity, toadied up to Owen's father. "Mr. Tyler, I trust this matter has been handled to your satisfaction? You know our school is planning an expansion, and the surrounding land is owned by Titan Corporation." Owen's father crossed his arms, exuding arrogance. "I'm pleased with your performance today. Don't worry. I'll make sure my wife donates the land you need." The principal's face lit up with a wide smile. "Thank you, Mr. Tyler. Thank you so much." Other parents eagerly jumped in, offering business cards and bribes, hoping to curry favor with Owen's father. He soaked it all in, reveling in the power and attention. He sauntered over to me, his voice dripping with condescension. "Do you see now? That's the power of wealth and influence. You, a pitiful freeloader, will spend your life groveling for scraps, while men like me enjoy real power." He leaned in closer, his breath hot with malice. "You have one day to leave this city with your mixed-blood daughter. If I ever see you around my wife again, I'll bury your bastard alive." At his words, my daughter whimpered in fear, burying her face in my chest. "Daddy, I'm scared. It hurts," she whispered. I looked down at her, my heart sinking. Beneath her torn clothes, I saw deep gashes, as if she had been cut with a small knife. The sight of her blood-stained skin ignited a rage in me that burned hotter than the sun. My vision turned red as I stared daggers at Owen's father, my blood boiling with fury. "Did your son do this?" I asked, my voice low, trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Owen's dad cast me a sidelong glance, his tone indifferent, laced with coldness. "What's the fuss? It's already merciful of me not to let my son kill that little bastard." Before his words could fully register, I surged forward, all the pent-up fury exploding in one swift motion. My fist collided with his face, the impact sending him stumbling back. Every ounce of anger, every insult, every ounce of humiliation was packed into that punch. The crowd fell silent, momentarily stunned by the audacity of my retaliation. But their shock was short-lived. Out of nowhere, another parent kicked me hard in the side, knocking the wind out of me. Then, like a swarm of hornets, They descended upon me, fists and feet raining blows from all directions. You dare hit Mr. Tyler? Do you have a death wish? One snarled as his fist connected with my ribs. Coward! You and your brat deserve worse, another added, kicking me while I was on the ground. With genes like yours, that kid's better off dead. You should be grateful for the beating, someone else jeered. Even the headmaster, the one who should have shown some decency, kicked me with a sneer. Trash like you doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as us. Stop hurting my dad. My daughter's tear-streaked voice cut through the noise as she ran to defend me, but a chubby boy, Owen, kicked her to the ground with a cruel laugh. Ha! Look at her cry, he sneered. The headmaster, patting Owen on the head, smiled approvingly. Owen, you're a true champion of justice. Tomorrow, I'll make sure you're honored in front of the entire school. Owen smirked, arrogance seeping from every pore. Humph, it's my duty to teach that little rat a lesson. I'll beat her every time I see her. My blood boiled as I struggled to rise, trembling with fury. My voice, though weak, carried the weight of my wrath. You'll regret this. Laughter erupted from the crowd, loud and mocking, as if my words were the punchline to a ridiculous joke. Did I hear that right? A freeloader is threatening us? One man scoffed. This loser really thinks he can do something? Mr. Tyler runs the Titan group. Crushing him is like swatting a fly, another sneered. Look at him, someone else added. He's got nothing left but empty threats. If I were him, I'd smash my head against a wall. Pinned to the ground, I could only seethe in helpless fury as they continued to spit their venomous words. My vision blurred with the weight of their mockery, but the fire within me did not waver. Owen's father, encouraged by the taunts of his lackeys, stepped forward, his polished shoe grinding into my face. His voice dripped with scorn. Regret? I've never regretted anything in my life. I'd love to see how a worthless worm like you can make me regret. Just as his words settled into the air, the low hum of approaching vehicles broke the tension. A convoy of sleek, black luxury cars lined up at the school gates, their polished exteriors gleaming under the afternoon sun. The laughter died down as everyone turned to look, curiosity and confusion spreading through the crowd. One by one, men in immaculate suits stepped out of the cars, their movements precise, methodical. They exuded authority, the kind that demanded attention without saying a word. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. The air crackled with tension as they approached, their eyes scanning the crowd before settling on Owen's father, who faltered for the first time. You were saying something about regret? I asked, my voice steady, though my body was battered and bruised. The immense presence immediately silenced the once boisterous scene. Parents holding me back abruptly released their grip, standing upright and directing attention toward the arriving luxury cars. Even Owen's father, who had been ready to strike, pulled back his foot, his gaze locked on the vehicles. I quickly got to my feet, helping my daughter, who had fallen. Under the watchful eyes of everyone present, a man in a sleek suit walked to the front car and respectfully opened the door. From inside, Sylvia stepped out, her figure slender and elegant, dressed in a high-end couture gown. Her silky, curled hair cascaded around her shoulders, and her noble demeanor, paired with striking beauty, instantly drew the crowd's admiration. Isn't that Miss Sylvia from the Titan Group? Yes, it's her. She's every bit the icy, powerful president they say she is. Look at that entrance. And she's stunning too, gorgeous and rich. No wonder that shameless man keeps trying to cozy up to her. As envious murmurs rippled through the crowd, Owen's father proudly strode forward and took Sylvia's hand. Wife, what brings you here? He asked, his face beaming with pride. Sylvia gave him a loving smile. You mentioned there was a conflict at school, she replied sweetly. I'm here to support you and our son. Owen's father, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction, asked excitedly, Really? So if anyone stands against me, you'll always have my back? Of course, Sylvia replied without hesitation. You and our son are my treasures. Anyone who dares to cross you, I won't let them go." Hearing Sylvia's unwavering support, Owen's father's smile grew even brighter. Around them, the other parents couldn't help but voice their envy. "Just look at them, a perfect couple. They're made for each other. Some people don't know their place, meddling in other people's marriages. Where do they get the nerve?" And that shameless man had the audacity to provoke Mr. Tyler. Let's see how cocky he acts once Miss Sylvia steps in to defend her family. As the murmurs continued, Owen broke free from the crowd and ran to his mother. "Mom!" he shouted, throwing his arms around her. Sylvia knelt down and hugged him tightly. "My sweet boy," she cooed. "Your dad told me you had a hard time at school today?" Owen grinned proudly, his chubby cheeks bunching up as he squinted. "Yeah, this stupid girl almost knocked me over when I was hitting her. But don't worry, I taught her a lesson. I messed up her face and scratched her with my knife." Sylvia gently pinched his cheek, smiling with satisfaction. "Good job, my precious son. You're so strong. Remember, if anyone dares to fight back in the future, don't hesitate. Hit them harder. Leave the rest to me. Understand?" Owen nodded enthusiastically. "Understood, Mom. That's my boy," Sylvia praised. After reassuring her son, Sylvia's gaze shifted to Tyler's father. "Now, show me who dares to disrespect my family," she commanded. Tyler's father eagerly led Sylvia through the crowd, pointing at me and my daughter. His voice boomed with arrogance. "Wife, it's that shameless father-daughter pair. I knew Sylvia from a different time in our lives, long before all this. We met at the company, both of us starting as trainees. I was an insignificant nobody back then, just another face in the office. Sylvia had been the same, an intern who joined with me, wearing oversized black-framed glasses, dressing modestly, and always carrying a serene, harmless expression. She appeared clueless, almost adorable in her simplicity. But beneath that quiet exterior was an unparalleled work ethic. She was the hardest-working intern I had ever seen, completely focused, always sitting in front of her computer, pushing herself beyond limits. She once told me she grew up in the countryside, accustomed to hardship, and without any outstanding talents. Her only option was to rely on sheer willpower and relentless determination. Her persistence inspired me. I began to help her behind the scenes, ensuring she kept her job when she was at risk of being let go. When she was promoted to a full-time position, her joy was infectious. From that point on, she threw herself into her work with even more intensity. I admired her resilience and eventually grew closer to her. Beneath her diligent and focused exterior, I discovered a playful, gentle, and caring side to Sylvia. She would share her breakfast with me if I skipped mine, bring me hot water and medicine when my stomach hurt, and tell terrible jokes to cheer me up when I was feeling down. Being around her made me feel at ease, and even when we weren't speaking, her presence gave me comfort. Our relationship took a turn one day during an unexpected encounter at a coffee shop. A woman falsely accused me of touching her inappropriately. The surveillance footage was inconclusive, and the crowd was ready to drag me to the police. Just as I was about to lose hope, Sylvia stepped forward, showing a video from her phone that cleared my name. That moment, I saw her in a new light, as if she were radiating a brilliance I hadn't noticed before. I confessed my feelings to her soon after, and she accepted. Our relationship was simple and joyful. We'd go to the movies, stroll through parks, and visit amusement parks together. Everything was perfect. When I introduced her to my family, she was nervous, knowing about my family's immense wealth. But my mother welcomed her, saying the only thing that mattered was that she loved me wholeheartedly. Sylvia swore she would, even proposing a prenuptial agreement to prove her devotion. I was deeply moved by her sincerity. After our marriage, Sylvia remained the gentle, thoughtful woman I had fallen for. She always took care of me in every possible way, treating me as if I were her most cherished treasure. And when it came to our daughter, she doted on her even more, as though she were a fragile gem that needed constant protection and adoration. For years, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. To support Sylvia's dreams, I gave her everything, handing over the reins of Titan Group without a second thought. Her happiness was my only goal. Even when the company faltered under her management, I never voiced a single complaint. To me, as long as we had a peaceful, happy life, as long as she loved me and our daughter sincerely, nothing else mattered. For so many years, I lived under the illusion of a deep, loving relationship, completely immersed in the emotional persona Sylvia projected. I saw her as the perfect wife and mother, the foundation of our small family. But now, looking at her today, standing before me in her high-end dress, surrounded by luxury cars, I couldn't help but feel a strange chill in the air. I see how naive I was, how blind. It's laughable, really tragic even. The truth that had been concealed for so many years came crashing down like a tidal wave, sweeping away everything I thought I knew. The moment Sylvia's eyes met mine, her entire demeanor shifted. Her face turned pale as though all the blood had drained from it. Her body went rigid, frozen in place, and her grip on Owen loosened as if by instinct. Owen, who had been smirking moments ago, suddenly fell to the ground, face down, landing with an undignified thud. "Mom, what are you doing?" Owen's cries echoed as he lay sprawled on the pavement, his voice high-pitched and filled with disbelief. Owen's father rushed over, quickly pulling him to his feet and brushing off the dirt. He knelt beside his son, cooing in a gentle tone, "Don't cry, Owen. Your mom's just furious. She's seen the person who hurt you, and she's probably livid. She can't wait to avenge you." His soothing words seemed to comfort Owen, who sniffled and wiped his tears. The other parents, watching the scene unfold, began murmuring among themselves. "Look at President Sylvia's face. She must be fuming, right? If anyone ever fooled President Sylvia like this, she'd lose it. She probably found out about that freeloader over there, and now she's ready to make him pay for messing with her family. Mark my words, that gold-digging scumbag's finished today. I hope someone's recording this. This is going to be one hell of a show." Excited whispers filled the air as everyone waited, eager to witness Sylvia's wrath. But to their surprise, she did nothing. She didn't scream or storm over. She didn't even move. She just stood there, staring at me with wide eyes, as if the ground beneath her had suddenly opened up. Owen's father, sensing her hesitation, stepped forward with a smirk, thinking he'd figured it all out. "Sylvia, it's all right. You don't have to hide it anymore. I know this man is the one you've been secretly supporting. I get it, you didn't want me to find out, but it's fine. As long as you punish him for what he's done, and promise me you'll cut him out of your life, I'll forgive you." His tone was smug, his words dripping with false generosity. He fully expected Sylvia to leap into action, ready to put me in my place. But instead, she remained frozen, staring at me as if seeing a ghost. Beads of cold sweat formed on her forehead, unnoticed by everyone except me. Suddenly, our daughter, with her innocent eyes and trusting heart, ran over to Sylvia. She looked up at her, confusion written across her small face. "Mommy, why are other kids calling you mommy too?" Before Sylvia could process the question, Owen barreled forward, rage flashing in his eyes. "You little brat. You're not allowed to call my mom mommy. Who do you think you are?" With that, Owen shoved my daughter hard, causing her to stumble backward. "The lesson I gave you earlier wasn't enough. Now you want to fight me over mommy? I'll beat you to death today." Just as Owen raised his fist, ready to strike, something snapped inside Sylvia. Her stunned expression morphed into fury. In one swift motion, she grabbed Owen by the arm and forcefully threw him to the ground with a harsh shove. "Shut up!" Sylvia's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Owen lay on the ground, shocked and bewildered. His father, equally taken aback, stared at Sylvia as if he couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The onlookers, who had been eagerly awaiting a spectacle, fell silent, unsure of what to make of the sudden turn of events. In that moment, I saw something I had never seen in Sylvia before. a fracture in her carefully crafted facade. The icy control she always maintained was gone, replaced by raw panic and desperation. And as I stood there, watching her fall apart, the weight of our shared history pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. Everything I had believed in, everything I had trusted, was crumbling before my eyes. Owen hit the ground hard after Sylvia threw him down. His elbow scraped against the rough pavement, leaving a raw patch of skin and streaks of fresh blood trickling down his arm. Instantly, his wails echoed across the scene, loud and piercing, like a pig caught in a slaughterhouse. Owen's father rushed to scoop him up, cradling him. His face twisted with anger as he shot a furious look at Sylvia. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded, his voice dripping angrily. "Did Owen do something so wrong that you'd shove him like that? And all because of that bastard child over there?" His eyes darted to my daughter, venomous. "Or are you telling me our son doesn't even measure up to that gigolo's brat?" He spat the words out like poison. "What's so special about that gigolo anyway? How did he manage to bewitch you like this?" The barrage of questions came in rapid succession, each one sharper than the last, but Sylvia remained silent. She didn't even glance at him. Instead, she knelt beside our daughter, her voice soft and sweet in a way I hadn't heard in years. "Yvonne, are you all right? Did you get hurt?" But the usually affectionate little girl flinched at her mother's touch. Her wide eyes, filled with fear, locked on Sylvia for a moment before she bolted to my side like a terrified kitten. She clung to me, hiding behind my leg, trembling and wary. The sight of Yvonne's fear seemed to hit Sylvia like a punch to the gut. Her face twisted, sour and unpleasant, as if she had swallowed something foul. The tension in the air was palpable when, suddenly, a sleek black car and several police cruisers pulled up to the curb. The scene shifted in an instant. A lawyer from the Department of Justice stepped out of the black business car and strode toward me, his demeanor respectful and professional. "Director Sebastian," he greeted me formally, handing over a thick file. "The divorce agreement you requested has been prepared. I've also arranged for the police to address the incident involving the injury at the school." The crowd went silent for a brief moment, stunned. Then, Owen's father broke into laughter, mocking me with a sneer. "You've got to be kidding me. This parasitic gigolo even hired actors to play along in his pathetic fantasy." His scornful eyes flicked to me, full of disdain. "Director Sebastian? You think you're worthy of that title?" As if to drive his insult home, he spat in my direction. His contempt was quickly echoed by the parents nearby, eager to pile on. "Exactly. What a joke. A shameless freeloader trying to pass himself off as some big-shot CEO. He really thinks he can keep up this facade just by latching on to President Sylvia? Once she's done with him, he'll be back begging on the streets. And calling the police? Is this gigolo really so delusional he doesn't see how ridiculous he looks?" Their jeers filled the air, but I remained unfazed, turning calmly toward the officers. My voice was steady, cutting through the noise. "Officers," I began, "these people have publicly defamed me, spread false rumors, and incited their children to bully my daughter. They vandalized my car and destroyed valuable antiques worth billions." I could see the shift in their expressions as I spoke. "I refuse any attempts at mediation. I demand this be handled according to the law." The air grew thick with tension as the weight of my words sank in. The parents, who had been so full of confidence moments before, began to falter. Panic flickered across their faces, but a few of them, emboldened by the crowd's earlier support, refused to back down. "Don't let him scare you. We're standing up for what's right," one parent shouted, their voice rising in defiance. "We're defending the sanctity of marriage. Everyone here knows we're in the right." "Exactly. We're protecting our values. No one can stop us from doing the right thing." The onlookers, fueled by righteous indignation, cheered them on. For a moment, it seemed like the tide would turn again, that they would rally together in defiance. But the police officers, unfazed by the crowd, moved to action. One of them scanned the damage to my car and noted the visible injuries on both Yvonne and me. His expression darkened. Is this what you call justice? Gathering a mob in broad daylight, vandalizing property, and harming a child? This is a serious crime. With that, the officers began taking pictures, documenting everything as evidence. Meanwhile, Owen's father stood there with his arms crossed, projecting a false sense of calm. A smirk played on his lips as if he still believed this would end in his favor. He exuded arrogance, as though he had already won, but I could see the cracks forming in his composure. The facade was crumbling. The pretender's reign was about to end. Officer, the child is still young. It's normal for him to not understand what's right or wrong while playing, Owen's father said, his voice filled with arrogance. As for the damaged property, all of it was bought by my wife. Her things are mine. What's the issue with me damaging my own belongings? The other parents jumped in to support him, eager to add fuel to the fire. Exactly. He's just a man living off his rich wife. All of it belongs to President Sylvia anyway. Why should he pay for breaking his own stuff? Who does this loser think he is? Just a freeloader demanding compensation from his own wife. Shameless, greedy for money. The police officer's expression hardened. Do you have any evidence that these things are your wife's? With a firm grip on Sylvia's hand, Owen's father looked at the officer confidently. My wife is right here. Ask her if you don't believe me. Honey, tell them. But to everyone's surprise, Sylvia shook off his hand as if he were contaminated, her voice icy and cutting. Get lost. Owen's father froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. His once gentle wife now seemed like a stranger. What is going on? He muttered, too stunned to comprehend. The other parents stood around, equally baffled, whispering to each other in confusion. The situation had taken a turn no one expected. Then, without hesitation, Sylvia stepped toward me. She reached out, her demeanor completely transformed into one of vulnerability. Tugging lightly at my sleeve, she spoke in a soft, trembling voice. Hubby, I'm sorry. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Sylvia, president of Titan Corporation, was apologizing to me and calling me hubby? The shock was palpable. Everyone stood frozen in place, mouths agape. Owen's father, now pale and shaken, stared at Sylvia, as if waiting for her to explain the impossible. Sylvia, he stammered, trying to find his voice. What are you doing? Why are you calling this man husband? What happened to us? Didn't you say that marriage was just a formality and I shouldn't worry as long as we loved each other? His voice began to rise as the confusion and hurt sank in. You told me you didn't want to be pregnant and carry a child, so we used surrogacy. The child is ours, Sylvia. How could you? Shut up. Sylvia's roar silenced him, her words sharp enough to cut through his desperate pleas. You're ruining everything, she hissed. The look on Owen's father's face was a mix of shock and devastation. He had never seen this side of her before. The cold, unfeeling side. She was no longer the loving woman he thought he knew. But Sylvia wasn't done. She turned back to me, her face softening, her hands trembling as they reached for me once more. Please, husband, I was wrong. Just forgive me this once. Her voice was fragile, pleading, as she batted her lashes like a repentant child. Once, this act might have worked. But now, I could only stare at her with disappointment, my voice devoid of any warmth. You should know, I said slowly, that my father died from depression after my mother's infidelity and betrayal. The one thing I despise most is betrayal in any form. I took a step back, pointing toward Owen's father. You promised me, Sylvia. You vowed you'd be faithful until death. And now I find you using my money to support another man, another family. Her lips trembled, but I didn't let her speak. You think I didn't notice? The day you coincidentally protected me in the cafe. How you convinced me not to press charges against that woman, claiming it was just a misunderstanding. And when I brought you home, how you didn't even bat an eye at learning my true identity. You had your eyes on me long before that, didn't you? I felt my anger rise, years of love and trust unraveling before me. All those moments that moved me, all those sweet little acts, they were just part of your scheme. I was nothing but a stepping stone for you. Sylvia's eyes welled with tears as she shook her head furiously, trying to cling to me. No, I truly love you. I swear. I'll fix everything. Just don't leave me. But her words fell flat. The weight of betrayal was too much to bear. And Owen's father, still struggling to piece together the reality unfolding before him, could only mutter in disbelief. Sylvia, what are you doing? You're a CEO. You have everything. Why are you begging him? Sylvia snapped, glaring at him with fury in her eyes. Because everything I have was given to me by him. Her confession silenced the crowd once more. The weight of her words hung in the air, and for the first time, everyone truly understood. It wasn't just about money. It was about power, manipulation, and the ugly truth behind Sylvia's rise to success. Owen's father, utterly defeated, could only stand there, his world crumbling around him. I turned away, the sting of betrayal too fresh to continue this charade any longer. For Sylvia, this was the end of her carefully crafted deception. And for me, it was a beginning, a fresh start, free from the poisonous grip of her lies.